everything's perfectly all right now. We're fine. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you?
Everything is fine here on Detention Blog E20, a Star Wars podcast. I'm Mike, joined by Greg. Glad to have him back. It's been a while, but always happy to have him back onto the show. So, welcome back, Greg.
Thank you.
Um, get the business elements out of the way really quick. So, if you're listening to us right now, hit that subscribe button, like the video, comment, rate, review, all the above. Any little thing that you can do, we greatly appreciate it as it helps us get our podcast and YouTube channel name out there amongst all the other Star Wars podcasts. And as a reminder, once we hit 200 subscribers, we will be doing a special little prize giveaway. So make sure to be public in your YouTube name when you subscribe, because that's the only way we'll be able to know who it is. And on top of that, once we hit 500, we'll be doing a lot bigger prize. So you're going to want to get that prize. So make sure to get your name in there. Also, our chat is up and running. So come talk to us, bring us your opinions, bring us your ideas. Come talk to us about Andor and your thoughts, because that's what we're going to be talking about today. Specifically, episodes 2 through 5. You know, Greg and I were kind of talking before we jumped on recording, but with this whole releasing 3 episodes at a time, each episode almost an hour long, it's really hard to watch all of them in time and then come and talk about all of them. So we're gonna get what we can get. You know, we're doing the best we can. We have lives, we have kids, But first of all, Greg, again, welcome back. When was the last time we had you?
Oh man,
was it Acolyte, or was it before?
No,
it was before Acolyte, right?
It was before Acolyte. Yeah, I mean this was
Ahsoka.
Yeah, probably tail end of Ahsoka, something like that. It's probably been not quite a year, but closer to a year.
Pretty close.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'd venture to say about maybe like 8 months, something like that.
All right.
Yeah.
So a baby could be born almost in that time. So
almost, yeah, right. No, pretty close. Well, I mean, technically, could be, yeah. Be born a little premature, but
a little premature baby can
healthy, and yeah. So there might be a new Star Wars fan having joined the world in the time it's been since my last recording.
And as you might notice, we have rebranded. Our logo is different. We're not going to get into any of that at the moment. But just know that it's still us. You see a different logo. You'll still see the Detention Black AA23 name there. So, all right, well, let's dive into Andor. We'll throw the spoiler tag out there. So if you haven't watched up to episode 5, I know Greg's kind of started into episode 6.
Yeah. I'll try not to bring any of that in, but
we'll just put the spoiler tag all the way through episode 6 just in case.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and when you're binge watching multiple episodes, all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, did that happen in this one or that one? Or it's all one big movie when you're just sitting there spending 2-3 hours flying through them all.
Yeah, and not to mention, as we were talking about before too, there's a lot of things happening, a lot of stories going on. So it's already a little challenging trying to follow every story going on at the same time of trying to understand which episodes. So,
well, and part of the problem that I run into with them all is, how does this connect to Rogue One? How does this connect to Rogue? So now I'm bringing in that whole outside deal that it's like, no, I should be focusing on all these stories, but I got this one floating out here that everything connects to. It's like, well, how? So you're trying to make those connection points, and you're like, just sit and enjoy the story being told here.
Yeah, for sure. So to that, are you enjoying the show so far?
I am. Yeah. After watching the first episode, and we don't need to jump back into that conversation. I know that you and the guys had that previous, but my reaction to the first one was, even if you didn't watch a single second of season 1 and you just jumped into season 2 for some reason, you could find it very enjoyable, very easy to follow and pick up, what story is being told, and get the entertainment value that they're looking for you to get out of it without any of the backstory that came with it, which I thought was like incredible. Because a lot of times when there's that continuation, you end up having to go back and rewatch the season before just to make sure you're up to date with, well, what's this character? Who's that character? What's, how is everything interconnected? And this was kind of really well done to find the entertainment value as a standalone product.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. And as you were saying that, I was just kind of thinking in my head that it's almost as if, I mean, to start out, season one was a little more straightforward, a little more linear, kind of easier to follow, but it was almost more of just like, all right, these are the characters. This is like kind of their backstory. This is how they got into the rebellion. Um, it feels like starting with episode one, and at least to where we are now, this is more of the story that wanted to be told for Andor. Like we're getting to the meat and the potatoes.
Yeah. Season one was really that foundational setting of, here are the characters. Here's who's on the good side, who's on the bad side, who maybe potentially you feel like could be floating in between and you don't quite know, and that might come to fruition here as season two carries on. But there were those characters, obviously, given the whole nature of what Andor is. It was like, who's playing both sides? Like who is that rogue agent that could be that could backstab, double cross anybody at any time? And so season one very much that solid foundation, and in season two, to your point, is really when the stories are able to unfold with those characters. At times it feels like a little too much, and there's some chaos to the stories, because it feels within that hour they're trying to tell 3 or 4 different stories all at the same time. So you're like, okay, I gotta track this. You need like pen and paper, and like you're writing down like, okay, they're connected here and this, and so it's fun, but at times it'll kind of get a little hectic to keep everything straight.
Well, it's almost like backstabbing Inception, because I'm just envisioning that there's going to your point of like who's doing what's going on. I almost feel like any one person could be like betraying another person that they're working with at this point at any time. I mean, right? We know Luthen in season one like betrayed Andor, but then like Cassian jumped upon his ship and like almost forced his hand, like either kill me or bring me in. So he ended up bringing him in. The whole like Cyril and Deidre thing, like like one of them could backstab each. It almost seems like Deidre could like backstab Cyril.
It always feels like Cyril's like one step away from like either really getting more deeply ingrained within the empirical ranks, or just getting so tired of it and just like, I'm getting passed over, I'm getting overlooked, I'm just at my wit's end, and he just snaps. His character, in some sense, reminds me, and I'm blanking on his name, but from Rebels, where he became the spy.
Oh, the Imperial guy that became the spy. Yeah, it's off on the tip of my starts. Anyways, it'll dawn on me at some point, but yeah, I totally get it. But at the same time, like I could see Cyril betraying Deidre, just using her as his means to get into the Empire or into the ISB. I could see Deidre backstabbing him just to get the information she's trying to get, working for Krennic. I could even see Cyril going the complete opposite direction and like getting so fed up to it, to your point, that I'm going to be on the rebel side because so he's just a big question mark on where he's going to go. And he's
Agent Callus.
That's what it was. Agent Callus. Yep.
What was his
rank?
No. Like his code name.
Well,
when he was given the
he didn't become Fulcrum, did he? And then Ahsoka? No.
He was.
Oh,
Yeah.
he was Fulcrum.
Yeah, he was Fulcrum. There it was. All right. Enough of a detour. That was okay.
No, we're getting our basis, getting our facts
All
straight
right.
now. And then Cyril is working with the Gormans,
Mm-hmm.
who the Gormans are impersonating, like, am I following it correctly? Where they're like impersonating having imperial ties, but they're actually more on the rebel side, or are they just on their own side, just trying to get
I
back at
think
the Empire because of what the Tarkin massacre?
I think that's it. Like the Gormans are not
They're not
the Gor- you know,
rebels.
the Gormans. I don't think want to be under empirical rule,
Right. Yep.
but I also don't think that they like outwardly want to be supporting the rebels. It very much seems like they just, hey, we want to be Switzerland, and the Empire is like, we're putting you are picking a side,
Yeah.
and we're going to put our armory here, and so now you've got this band of rebels within Gorman that are going to try to take a stand because of the actions of Tarkin, and they really feel like they're flying without a captain. I mean, they are just blinded by just pure rage. It feels like every decision that they're making, every action
Yep.
that they've taken is like,
because they even have Cyril's office wired, but then the Empire like caught on to that, and now they're investigating Cyril. They're investigating his office. So they like everyone kind of knows something's going on. Cyril knows that it's
they know what, like they know what they want to do. They, in a sense, know what they have to do. The problem is they don't know how to really implement it because they're just rushing to everything. And it was like, you have to take your time. If you're going to have the rebellion, you can't just go rushing in. Like, you have to attack at just the right moment. You have to pick your spots, and they're not thinking that way.
which makes
And I
that.
think Cassian,
Continue.
well, and I think that's where Andor was like, he washed his hands of them, because he's like, they're going to end up in a horrible situation here, because he can see it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that makes that scene with Deidre and Krennic even more powerful, because this was Deidre's idea. Like, it was her inception of the idea into Krennic for like, let Gorman rebels like do what they do in terms of how did he put that? I'm trying to remember. It was from episode 2, maybe episode 1, episode 2. Where, do you remember that scene where Krennic was talking with Deidre and he was like, "Speak your mind. I know you're more intelligent than this. I've been following you." And she made a comment about let Gorman rebels do what they do, or something like that. And so I think they're planning on that, them not really planning all too well, or being more reactive and messing up, essentially, because they're going to want the Empire wants this situation to play out like that.
Yeah, well, and the rebels on Gorman have not been discreet. Like, they may think they are, but realistically, it's like they're very transparent with what they're trying to do, and I think that's where, especially when you consider who they've gone up against, the Empire. It's like, listen, you guys are going off half cock. Like, we know exactly where you're going. We're just going to let you do it and direct you down the path we want you to go down, because we know where it'll end. We'll control the situation.
We want you to make a scene. And if I remember correctly, like the whole spider thing, that's just smoke and mirrors. They want that mineral or whatever, because they want essentially the ultimate power source, obviously probably for the Death Star. But then it was something about it the material is for coating the panels. So it sounds like they're just going to strip this planet clean, anyways.
Yeah.
So they're there. They're like a virus. They're going to consume um, the resource and then move on. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
Which is, I mean, that part makes you question: Are they really building an armory?
I don't think so.
Because, like, if your ultimate goal is to just pillage the planet for the resources and then leave it destitute, why would you put an asset on the planet?
I
Like,
Yep. I think it's smoke and mirrors because I think they knew the Gormans are kind of sensitive about this monument. Obviously, there's 500 people that died. So they're like, all right, how do we trigger them? Let's create this imperial building that like casts a shadow over
yeah,
it. We'll leak insight that it's an armory, even though it really isn't.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I think that's a good point. I think that's a great question. So I don't think it actually is an armory. They're just,
and I think,
again, they're trying to, set them down a certain path. They're trying to trigger them.
yeah, and I think we'll figure that out because, I mean, there's all the talk of what the rebels are going to do. They're going to take the container, and that, I mean,
Mhm.
that's their whole plan. Right now we'll see how it. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that goes off in episode 6. I haven't seen it yet, but that's what their plan is from episodes 2 through 5.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just a dummy, container that,
Yeah.
hey, we're doing this, and yeah, it's that dummy container of weapons just to catch them in the act.
Yep. And I think it's going to make them look bad. So then it gives the Empire a reason to like, fully take over and then consume the resource and then
Yep.
get out of there.
Yeah, kind of place the planet under martial law and just
Yep.
clamp down until the resources are gone.
Yep.
Yeah, I can see that.
Precisely.
Yep.
Um,
Unless the resources can be replenished,
mhm.
in which case building the armory to protect, now maybe the planet is like a long-term investment.
That could be too.
And yeah, and if that's the case, then the armory does make sense,
Yeah.
because you'd be then using that to protect your asset, which is in essence the planet, because it's got this renewable energy source, or renewable
Or mineral or whatever
yeah,
it is.
yeah, supply that. And so that part, that was the Empire, they go to a planet and they just decimate it, get all the materials, all the minerals, everything they need off it, leave it destitute, and then move on.
Yeah.
So this would be a little change in their MO, which would be kind of fun.
So whether it's an armory or not, I think we can still agree that the location of it was intentional.
Oh yeah, the location's a big middle finger.
It's just a middle
or
finger.
whatever the Gorgon
Equivalent is.
equivalent.
Well, their goodbye is this. I did pick up on
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
Whatever their middle finger is, that's
Right.
that's what
Who
it would
knows?
be.
But, yeah, so it'd be. I mean, it's just interesting, to see how that it's going to play out.
Yeah. Some of the things I've kind of noticed, which I'm really curious about. So I think one of the planets we saw was Yavin 4. That was the one where, remember, I think it's episode 2 where Cassian gets trapped on that planet with the other rebels. And they hold up with the TIE fighter.
Where he yeah.
When he flies away, you see like those 2 pyramids, which looked exactly like the ones from Yavin 4. So I think that's very interesting because does that mean that Andor or Cassian gave the way or gave insight on a good place for a base? Because that's where they were kind of holding station, him and his buddy or his coworker or colleague or whatever you want to call him.
Could have shared that as a possible.
Because we see him there. I mean, that's where the rebels are in Rogue One, where they lift off to go towards Scarif. And then the other one I was wondering about, so where Saw is, where his crew is,
Yeah.
until the end, where they are for most of the series so far, or season. That kind of looks like the base that the Resistance was on in the sequel trilogy, Force Awakens, and that what they lift
Yeah.
off from in The Last Jedi. You remember that? Remember that planet?
Yep.
So I'm wondering if there's ties there too. Now I haven't checked the names of the planets, and they're probably out there available, but just visually, that's something I noticed, and I'm curious if there's ties there, which would be interesting because you're kind of
Yeah, a little Easter egg kind
yeah,
of tucked in there. Yeah.
yeah, because obviously the Resistance would have had to find out about that base somewhere,
Mhm.
and the Rebels would have to find the Yavin 4 base somehow. So these are all possible
Yep.
connections to that. Um, one question I had is, are we so at the end of episode 5, you see Saw and he's with I forget the kid's name that essentially did the
Will you? Yeah.
oh yeah,
Will you? No, it's not William, but
Willman.
that sounds right.
Um, so that whole breathing thing, are they on a planet that doesn't have oxygen, or is this what's being set off based off the like I don't know if I want to call it a bomb or whatever that thing he's working on. Is it releasing that?
I was wondering the same thing.
And whatever it is, I feel like this is what causes Saw Gerrera to have that. Remember, he has that oxygen
Oh,
mask that he
yeah.
has. I'm
Yep.
wondering if this like plays into that. This is what caused that. Um, because that's another thing I'm
Or
trying
if
to,
that contains what he's got, maybe
or
not
that,
causes it, but he
oh, it
becomes so
contains it,
dependent
so
upon it.
it's like a drug.
Yeah.
That's probably more accurate. I bet you're right there.
So yeah, I do wonder, because I saw the same thing where I was wondering, like as he was, going to work, and I'm trying to find um, his name because otherwise that'll set me off.
The kid,
Yeah, trying to where Willman.
Willman. Okay.
Yep. So that looks to be it. Yeah. So Willman is wearing like the goggles and the mask, and
Yep.
so it's like, okay, well, why is he? But Saw isn't. And it was like, all right, you're trying to get, and then when he takes it off, and the breathing, it was like maybe like on that planet in that area, Saw is good, but he becomes so grows so dependent. It's like how maybe they'll in later episodes or later future seasons or something they'll explain. Otherwise I'm sure you could look up the history of Soccer's character and get explanation for it, but it'd be interesting to see if that does in fact tie to what you see in Rogue One
Yeah.
with the breathing apparatus that he has.
I bet you're right, though. I bet it is. It's whatever in the mask is releasing that drug or whatever that gets him high,
Yeah.
instead of it being like an oxygen mask that's helping him breathe. So I bet you're right on that. Um, we find out that Bix is essentially taking drugs. She takes it for sleeping. Um, curious what's going to happen with her character.
Air quotes around the sleep, takes it just for sleeping.
Yeah, right. I don't know if she's going to make it through.
Oh, you don't think she makes it through the season? You think
Yeah.
she ends up?
I'm having after episode 5, I'm having a suspicion.
My thing is, does like, because I had a similar type of feeling, but then it's out of spite for Cassian trying to be overprotective of her, which it feels like they were kind of laying the groundwork for that in episode 5 with the two of them. Will she take a mission from Luthen that unnecessarily puts her in harm's way, and then the result is an untimely death for
Yeah.
her? And then and then that, I'm getting way far ahead, but like, does her death on that unnecessary, crazy decision then do something to like fracture a relationship with Andor and Luthen? Because obviously Andor is going to blame Luthen if Luthen approves Bix going on just some crazy mission that gets her killed.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I think that
you wonder if like how those characters, how that potential storyline, transpires and what it does to the characters.
yep. And that would make complete sense for this show. And then it also would tie in. So you were talking about, I think you were talking about this off air. Um, but like Cassian's character, with season 2, you're seeing even more how we phrased it, battle hardened. His character has become into the transition of Rogue One.
Yep. You're seeing that character arc that ultimately leads you to what you saw at the beginning and throughout Rogue One. Yeah.
Who becomes a guy just doesn't care about relations, doesn't care. He's pretty calloused by Rogue One. I mean, he kills his partner right away when the guy has a hurt arm or whatever. He has no problem betraying the people he's with because he was going to kill Jyn Erso, or not Jyn, Galen Erso, even though Jyn is with them, so it's her father.
I think at some point, because right now you can see how he still has very empathetic ties to the human emotion and the and the cost that could come from the actions. Like, hey, this could result in the loss of human lives. I can't in good consciousness like sleep on that, knowing that.
Yep.
That's where he's at, kind of like right now. It's maybe an internal battle, but that's where he's at. At some point, it's got to flip, and he's got to become that just calloused mission over man type of mentality that he has in Rogue One. Because to your point, he didn't care who got hurt, how well he knew him, anything. The mission was the priority.
Yep.
Not the safety of anyone else, the mission over all else. And right now, he does not have that mentality of mission overall. So
right.
I think at some point you will see, and he's going through that whole character arc. And I do think that there's little tidbits that are little breadcrumbs being dropped that will lead you to see his character morph into what you saw in Rogue One. I'm interested to see where it goes, but because I always liked this character from Rogue One. But I'm still also trying to keep track of the 47 storylines that they put together in all these episodes.
And if that situation plays out that way with Luthen sending Bix onto a mission without Cassian knowing that, or maybe he knows or maybe he doesn't, and then something happens to her, that would definitely callous him even further to not caring.
That would start, I think, kind of to your point, that would start to chip away at having any like relationship or any emotional attachment to a relationship, with regards to the rebellion.
Yep. Because then if you think about it, going from season 1, he goes from losing his sister, because I don't know if we ever found out what happened with his sister. I think we just assume she's gone.
Yeah.
Like they were Canaries, I think that's what the name of it, Canaries. And the first episode, he's searching for his sister, never finds her, so we don't know. And then the adoptive father, we learn, passed away. And then Marva, the adopted mother, essentially, she dies. And then now one of his close friends dies early in this season. And then so it's like one by one, they're falling off, and everyone he cared about is going to be gone. And then he's just going to be like, I don't care anymore. My whole objective, because it's the Empire that caused all of this, my whole objective is just to take down as much of the Empire as I can before before I'm gone. And Luthen talking to Bix and just the whole comment about like, I need you healthy. And he was talking about like, you know, you can take that drug or whatever if you want. It helps for a while, but then after some time, the effects kind of like wear off and it doesn't work and it comes back worse.
Yeah.
And she essentially gave the impression that, well, for as long as it works, you will have me fully healthy, and you know, after that, then so be it. But put me to work now, and I'll get the job done. So
Yeah,
we'll see.
yeah. I do. Oh, so bouncing around a bit. The wedding with Mon
Yeah.
at Mon Mothma.
Yep.
Maybe it just kind of didn't catch a connection. Like, I mean, there was obviously, they're talking back and forth, and like there are those but I was like, it felt like they spent too much time like on the actual, like on the wedding
On the wedding.
Yeah, like the ceremony. It's like, I get that. Yeah, there's a lot of like old traditions that they have, but I was like, how is this progressing any part of the the story?
Yeah.
And I mean, again, I could very well be naive to the importance of what those scenes kind of brought, but that was, at times parts where I was just kind of like, I don't get where I don't get where you're going, what you're trying to tell me here.
Yeah. I the thing I think we're supposed to get out of the whole wedding and all that, I do think that they probably played into it a little too much, but maybe that's intentional, is kind of the length that Mon Mothma is going for the sake of like the rebellion, funding the rebellion, the secrecy of the rebellion, the preservation of the rebellion, because she's essentially, I'm not going to say selling off her daughter, but like giving her daughter away to the son of this other guy for the sake of it. Because wasn't that part of the pact that was made with Mon, the guy who's separated from his wife now, like he was supposed to find like funders or whatever for her to hide like the bank transactions or whatever. So they needed more funding to cover for the loss of money in the bank accounts. And he found a client, and it was this guy who was willing to give away his son for the sake of that, if I'm remembering correctly. So chat, please chime in if I'm remembering wrong. And because she didn't want to put her daughter through that, but then her hand was forced to. And now we saw, was it at the end of the wedding when that guy was being driven away? The guy who found the client, her friend, that I think there was
her lover as her husband.
Yeah, but then he kind of give the indication that maybe he wasn't feeling the same feelings as Mon, that it was pure business, and that's why she was getting pissed. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what I kind of got out of it. Yeah.
But the driver of that guy away from the wedding was the lover of Mon Mothma's cousin, was it? Who was working for Luthen, remember?
Yeah.
So that was her lover that was on that mission to rob the quarterly bankroll of that portion of that bunker of the Empire. So she's keeping tabs on that situation. So this, before we jump down, we're like, it's kind of like Game of Thrones with all these things that are taking place, and you're trying to like connect the dots, and everything is weaving in and out of each other. But yeah, to the whole wedding thing, I think it was just supposed to play into the depth that Mon Mothma is getting herself into with her own family in an effort to preserve the rebellion.
Oh, okay. All right. No, that yeah.
But I think they did spend a little too much time on it. They didn't need to show everything
Yeah.
they showed. Because
All right.
I
Yeah.
thought that her relationship with both her daughter and husband were kind of like not the greatest relationship.
No,
I
it
think we
felt
got
like
that from the first season.
yeah. I mean, it felt like her and her husband. It was like, all right, hey, we're together for show
Right.
because she's a political public figure. So
Yeah.
there's that, and then the daughter is just kind of trotted out as well. But yeah, so like publicly they put on this performance to give the people what they want, so to speak. But
Yeah.
actually, behind closed doors, once they get home, they're all away from each other and into their own deals. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, and I do now that you're talking more about like some of the scenes surrounding the wedding, I'll have to go back in and fully focus because that was one thing. I mean, it was I was trying to catch up on basically 6 episodes, so
Yeah.
all within like the last day and a
What?
half. I mean,
Yeah.
you're just ripping through, and so like there are, and I'm sure you'll do it too, where you go back in and you rewatch, and so it's all right. What did I miss? Oh, like, and having the kids, it's like, okay, well, you're trying to watch something, but then all of a sudden, you might miss one line or 2 lines of dialogue between 2 people just because of like a 10-second, little, noise that comes from a sleeping baby that you're like, huh? Well, wait, what did they just say?
What I
And then
missed?
yeah, and then you back it up, and then it's like all of a sudden, you're taking a drink, and the noise kind of, and you're only gonna back up so many times. So, I think that you rewatch them because the rewatchability of them has been there. It really
Yeah.
feels like so you rewatch it and you pick up like, oh, that's how they're connected. Oh, this is what they're trying to do. Oh, okay, yeah. And so I'll probably have to do that when I've got a little bit more time, or just take an hour a day and bam, bam, bam
Yep.
over the next week. But
Oh, likewise. I mean, I've been trying to, push through all of them as much as possible too. And usually when it's like a single episode release, I'll watch it, and then it's easier to go back and watch it quick, So
yeah,
when you're watching 3 to 6 episodes all at a time, it's like I'm only going to be able to watch them one time through, and then it's kind of like, off the cuff, and then find the time when I can, rewatch them and get more of the true details that you can
yeah.
get.
Did you know that like the 3-episode release? I'm looking at it right now, but so Ariel Kleiman, maybe butchering the name, I apologize, but she directed the first 6 episodes here.
Okay.
Then you have it's from he's a Danish film director, so maybe Janus Pedersen, Janus.
Okay.
He's got the next 3, and then Alonso Ruiz Palacios is got the last 3 episodes of the second season.
Okay.
So that part's interesting that they've got. Oh, and Ariel is a dude, so he's a guy. So I apologize for that one. If you're listening, I apologize. With that being said, Mike and I will gladly be extras in season 3.
Of course. We'll stormtrooper outfits if you want us to. I don't care.
Yeah, I don't care.
We don't have to show our faces. You probably don't want to show our faces, but just get us on there. Put us in the credits.
Somewhere. Someone needs to die in the first 2 minutes. I'm your man.
We can do it multiple times.
That's right. But then the stories, there's 4 writers. Each one wrote 3 episodes. So episodes 1 through 3 were all written by Tony Gilroy.
Yeah.
4 through 6 were all Bo Williman.
Okay.
Dan Gilroy has episodes 7 through 9.
Got to be related.
Tom Bissell is going to run anchor and bring us home on episodes 10 through 12. So that I do think is interesting how they're going to be able to kind of keep one fluid voice going through the entire season.
What we do know is each 3 episodes is an arc.
Yeah.
And each arc will take place 1 year leading up to Rogue One. So season 1 was all 5 years before Rogue One.
Mm-hmm.
The first release was 4 years. This is 3 years. So I still wish they would do like one writer, like one vision through the whole thing. That's, to me, that's just always the best way to go. The most
or like a group, like a group of writers. You want to have the 4, because I do think having multiple writers does help, because you're bouncing ideas.
Well, that's
around.
true.
Well,
that's true.
I wouldn't, not like multiple, like you're in charge of episodes 1 through 4, you're 5 through 8, whatever. No, but it's like, all right, you 2 or you 4 are all the writers. You will all be credited as a writer.
Sure.
What I want you to do is you guys go into a room or wherever, and the 4 of you write all 12 episodes of the season.
Yeah.
And then that way, all 4 are bouncing ideas off each other, and they're building a story together that then carries one combined voice of the 4 minds.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. I think that's a good point.
With that being said, I still have found these first episodes very enjoyable, and they've been 2 different writers.
But it makes me wonder, like, is it going to have a different feeling, like a different style for the other arcs, if it's different writers or different
directors? I could see
directors.
Different directors, different interpretation of the story. There's that potential, because we saw that with
the sequel trilogy.
Well,
and Book of Boba.
Book of Boba. There was just way too many writers and directors, and it's just everything was, every episode felt like its own completely disconnected kind of story.
Yeah.
And it was like, am I watching a Star Wars series, or am I watching like one of those a cartoon, like the Simpsons, where Bart Simpson's been 10 years old for 40 years? Like, which one are we working with here? Because I would prefer to have the story arc go in a nice and like somewhat like linear kind of path, where you could follow the arc. At least, it's going to have some twists and turns, but overall, it's got the same theme. It's you're on the same road. It's no massive detours taking you to where you now have space Vespas.
And it's like, I understand like the individual directors doing that, because they're not just going to want to follow someone else's style.
Yeah,
like they want to put their stamp on it.
Yep.
It's not their fault. It's more the the higher ups' fault for going that route. But I agree with you in terms of, it's better to have multiple opinions when you're creating a story, just so people can bounce ideas off each other. Whenever you're in a situation where you need ideas or creative ideas, it's good to bounce things off of people. One of the things that came out of season 1 for, kind of criticism for the season was that it didn't necessarily feel like Star Wars. It was a great story, but didn't feel like Star Wars. I felt season 1 did feel like Star Wars, just in a different way. How do you feel season 2 fits in with that?
I think people are still going to say it doesn't feel very Star Warsy, because there's no lightsabers. You haven't seen too many even like blaster battles or any of that. So you will get people that will say that. I personally enjoy seeing another side of like the Star Wars story, because you are getting, and we've talked about it multiple times, possibly on air, but definitely off of, wouldn't it be cool to see like a day in the life of like an Imperial officer It like you never get that. Like in the movies, you never get that. It's just the Empire's bad, and then you get a few people that you'll see, the higher ups from the Empire that you see, but the everyday employee of the Empire, you never got their story, and you're getting that with this because you're not getting the higher. You get in Krennic every now and then, but like you're not
Right.
getting the executive level. I mean, you're not quite entry level, but you got some middle management folks,
Yeah.
and like so you're seeing that dynamic. And maybe I'm in the minority on this one. Maybe I'm all alone, but I'll lone wolf it if I am. I love seeing that side of the Star Wars story. I don't need a lightsaber all the time. You don't have to throw one in there just to throw one in there. I wouldn't mind a few more blaster battles, but but I also understand the whole point of like the Andor uh, series isn't to be this massive gun battle and fight after fight after fight. This is the backstory that leads you to the fight after fight after fight of Rogue One.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't, at some point, yes, they will have to get, Andor and the rest of the rebels into these constant battles that Jyn Erso was tossed into,
Right.
and we were tossed into in Rogue One. At some point, you have to get into that. But for the most part, I love the way that the story is progressing and getting us to those points. Now, my hope is that over the next 6 episodes, because I don't know if they've got a season 3 coming up.
No, that's just season 2.
All right. Yeah, and I didn't think that they did, but so obviously you have to in these next 6 episodes, and maybe it's all the action will be in the last 3, but you've got to start getting into the battles.
Yep.
At least a few of them.
And you're not a lone wolf in it, because I completely agree with you. I think this is absolutely fascinating. I think it really pays tribute to like the original trilogy and the length, or the depth, I should say, of everything behind it that led to those events, where you then have like the Jedi of Luke Skywalker. Because the original trilogy, I know if a lot of people, like you said, when you say Star Wars, they want to see lightsabers, they want to see like the Force and everything.
Yeah,
But
and the TIE Fighter X-Wing.
yep.
Yeah. Yep.
But if you think about the original trilogy, you don't even really have that much lightsaber fighting. You do have the TIE fighter, you do have that kind of stuff, but not much Force, not much Jedi, not much lightsaber. And it's more about the rebellion in the original trilogy, I feel like.
Mm.
And this show and Rogue One further demonstrate the depth that people went in, support of the rebellion. And so to me, it feels Star Wars. A different Star Wars for sure, but I think it feels Star Wars. I do think that it kind of feels like Blade Runner a little bit too, in terms of like the visuals, it's just normal people kind of a thing, but in a Star Wars setting. So
Yep. I completely agree with you on that one.
So I'm on board with it. I still think it's some of the best Star Wars content we've gotten since the original trilogy. Because I mean, Rogue One is one of my I think it's top 4 movies of Star Wars for me.
Mm-hmm.
And the Andor show has just been great. And I think I will continue to preach it. The production quality of this show is superb. The acting is superb. All that stuff is just phenomenal. And whether it's Star Wars or not, it's a great, great show, great content.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to kind of speak to with Andor, or questions or things you're looking forward to seeing?
K2SO,
Yeah, that's a good point.
because I know
It's got
I'd
to be the
already
next
seen,
arc, right?
well, because Alan Tudyk, it's already kind of reports out, it's out there that he reprises his role
Yep. Yep.
as K2SO, and so at some point in this season, we'll see it, and I'm intrigued as to how that pairing started,
Yeah.
because we all know what K2SO was, you know obviously.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, you started as Imperial Security, and then you became, Andor's Chewbacca,
Yeah.
basically.
His sidekick.
Yeah. So, are we going to see K2SO as that security droid, and then the subsequent reprogramming into the sidekick? It'll be, I hope it doesn't take like a majority of a storyline, because I don't know that it necessarily needs it, like the whole reprogramming and
Yeah.
and that. And I think you can allude to a lot of that being done off camera, but just knowing Alan Tudyk, how what he did with that character in Rogue One, him as a security droid, I have to believe, and maybe I'm setting my expectations too high, but I just have to believe he's going to be hilarious as that. And then just moving into the role that he ended up playing in Rogue One, very interested to see that come out over these next 6 episodes. Well, 7, because I haven't watched episode 6 yet. But yeah, just interested to see that. Very interested to then see when the battles begin, who turns on who. Is there a turn that is unexpected, one way or the other?
Yeah.
Was there a rebel that all of a sudden, became compromised, and for the safety or sake of their own family, or what have you, decides to double cross, for the Empire? Or does someone get fed up with the Empire and just go, you know what, I'm joining?
Something's going to happen. And I
Yeah.
think the bad guys are going to be the winners of it, because we know the ultimate ending is that the good guys win. So I think they're going to make it the bad guys win at this point.
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, you've got to, I mean, Andor at some, like the very last episode, obviously he's got to go like into hiding, or they've got to go kind of on the run, just based on how they begin Rogue One. I mean,
Yeah.
he's clearly, hey, like Rogue One starts, they're fighting these battles. They're trying, but they're not really winning. They're getting a few, but overall, they're they're kind of struggling. The rebellion is on its last legs, so to speak. So we'll have to see that, where you're getting you get a win here, potentially a win there, but overall, you're struggling to make a dent in the imperial, the hold of the Empire on the universe.
Yep. And
So,
to your thing with K2SO, my guess is in the next arc, so the next 3 episodes that we'll release next week, we will be introduced to K2SO's like droid, but then at the end of it is probably when he gets reprogrammed, or leads up to that, and then we see him as his full or like sidekick in the final 3 episodes. And
yeah.
I'm wondering, because all the droids that we've seen, the K2 droids we've seen, kind of have similar voice. I don't think it's going to be Alan Tudyk at first. I think it's going to be that voice. And then
Oh, you think he's the reprogrammed voice?
he's a reprogram, and I think it's B. I think he takes B, his current droid, and reprograms him into the other droid. And if they did that, that would make K2SO's dying scene in Rogue One that much more tragic, because it was Malva's droid too. Like, he's been growing up with this droid since he was a little kid. Yeah. And it's kind of like
Why would you say that?
a mixture of their two voices in a way. And then, B wouldn't have that like lisp anymore. He would talk normal. Well, not lisp, he's a stutter. That's what he has. I know, just ruined your day.
Right? Unbelievable. Good thing it's almost over. No, but what I could see though is I could see some of that happening, but off camera between the two arcs.
Sure.
Because obviously a year passes between each. So there could be the beginning of a reprogram for K2SO, and maybe that's where it's a merging of the two. You somewhat see that at the tail end of episode 9. Leading into the end of the episode, it's like, okay, he's starting to work on both droids, and you kind of gain a sense of what he's gonna do.
Yeah.
And then they go 1 year, episode 10 starts 1 year later, and then bam, now you've got Alan Tudyk, K2SO. So all the reprogramming, all of that, it obviously, hey, over the last year, he's been working on reprogramming K2SO, and so you get that out of the way without having to really take any screen time for it, because you've already jumped the storyline ahead a year, and clearly a lot happens in a year.
Yep. And it also means they don't have to pay as much for Alan Tudyk, because if you're only having him for the final
Could be the last 3 episodes.
Yep. It's a lot less than having him for 9 episodes, because it's kind of similar to like what they've done with Krennic so far. Because he's only been in one episode?
Around there, yeah. I mean, it's really, he has not been, 1 or 2.
Maybe
2. Total screen time feels like he's been on for like 10 minutes.
Yeah. So, like, they can have him, they can advertise the show that, Krennic is in it, and he has, he plays a role, just like Alan Tudyk could for K2SO, but then kind of minimize the screen time of those characters, and that means you don't have to pay as much for the actors. So but we'll see. I do, because like this would probably be the last we get of K2SO and Alan Tudyk, and it's such an awesome character that I want as much of him as possible, especially that interaction between him and Cassian.
Yeah, but I mean, there's there'd be nothing, because we know how Rogue One goes,
right?
So unless what they do is like, if they do like an animated series, like Clone Wars style, where all of a sudden, hey, you've created the movie has these characters, but now, and I don't know how they would really do that.
But I just don't know if they would use Alan Tudyk as the voice, because even like other Star Wars, like think of Obi-Wan Kenobi in Clone Wars. He wasn't voiced by Ewan McGregor. He had someone that sounded as similar as possible.
Well, because maybe Ewan doesn't do animated show.
Voice acting. Yeah, that's true.
I don't know.
But there's certain characters that I want more of, and he's definitely one of them. I'm sure you feel the same way.
I'll give another voice actor a try. I mean, a lot of them, especially Star Wars with the animated shows, they're fantastic. The voice actors that do them.
Yeah.
And so, I'm sorry, Alan, if you don't want to, join the show, then you will be replaced. But he did reprise K2SO in Star Wars Battlefront.
Okay. All right.
He's voiced the Joker and Clayface and Harley Quinn. So he has done quite a bit of
in a video game.
No, it was a Harley Quinn series.
Oh, okay. He is a great actor. I still always remember A Knight's Tale. This character from that.
A Knight's Tale.
He's Steve the pirate from
Yeah.
Dodgeball.
Yep.
Yar, Peter.
Yarr.
Speaking of, did you ever watch Skeleton Crew?
Yeah. I didn't watch it all the way through though.
Okay.
I still got a couple episodes to go.
I mean, it's what you would. Well, you've seen some of it, so it's
Yeah.
what you would think of it. But it was pretty decent. Speaking of Steve the Pirate, just made me think of that, and I know we haven't had you on since that show came out, so yeah.
He was the Duke of Westleton in Frozen.
Oh, okay.
Ice Age, Continental Drift, Milton / Hunky Siren,
I don't know.
King Candy, and Wreck-It Ralph.
Okay.
Yeah, dude, he's done. I mean,
Very
he was
versatile.
2019 Aladdin. He did Iago.
So does he do more voiceovers than he does?
He does a lot of them.
Okay. That's why he's perfect for a droid.
Like he did like the chicken bird deal in Moana.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
See, that's why he makes a great droid. You know, he's already used to voiceovers.
Dude, he's hilarious, absolutely hilarious. But yeah, a lot of voice work.
Yeah, I like him. He's a good actor.
Yeah,
It's funny. All right. Well, I know we're about at the hour mark, and I still want to watch the final episode before going to bed if possible. So I will wrap us up here. Any last thoughts, whether it's Andor or anything outside of Andor, Star Wars in general?
not that I can think of right now. No.
Well, it has been great having you back, Greg.
Well,
Hopefully we can get you on a lot more coming up in the near future. But
yeah, as long as start times aren't at my bedtime.
No,
I'm getting old.
I know.
Hitting that milestone later this year.
It's a big one.
You're
I'll be
telling
shortly
me.
after you,
Yeah.
but not until the next year. Meaning you will be 2025. You'll hit it 2025. I'll hit it in 2026.
Yeah.
All right. Well, again, if you're listening to us, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Like the video, rate, review. Any little thing you can do, we greatly appreciate it. We will have that prize giveaway at 200 subscribers, and we'll do another even larger one at 500. Make sure to put your name in as public so I can enter you into the drawing. Otherwise, there's nothing I can do. I can't enter your name. Sorry. With that,
I'll take the prize.
yeah, we'll just send it to Greg. We'll send it to Greg otherwise. I'm sure he'll enjoy it.
Guest appearance gets a prize. Yeah.
Hey, I'm sure you've subscribed to the channel, so you are one of them. But have a great rest of your day. Have a great rest of your week, and we look forward to bringing more Andor to all you listeners next week. And with that, as always, may the Force be with you.
Thanks for calling. This is Han Solo, and I'm going to be keeping you company for the next few hours right here on the Midnight Shift. Something's